Hey everybody, welcome to another Team Absolution deck profile. This one is not Vanguard, so if you want the best deck in the meta, you should just head over to this link that Nate will post here. But otherwise, if you want to see some spicy brews, stick around. Hey everybody, so welcome to our post-ban list series number 2 of 2. If you want to find out what Ripples looks like after the Odysseus hit, well I can tell you, it's still surprisingly solid. Actually took a few tops, and here's our spicy brew straight from Single Land. We're going to start with the boy, the starting Ripple, Alecs. What does he do? He just kind of makes sure that you get there. Because, you know, playing Ride Chain decks, pretty annoying back in Limit Break format. You had several iterations, my personal favorite being the Tsukiyomi version. This is probably my second favorite just because of the consistency. So, with him, when you ride on Silent Ripple Sotirio on top of him, you get to check the top 7 cards of your deck for the grade 2 or the grade 3, which is perfectly alright with me. So, of course, probably the most important card to start with in the... Actually, I'll go over triggers first. Triggers first. We got 4 of the expensive trigger. Why? It doesn't super matter. You get turn damage face up if you want to put him in the soul, but you probably need this card in your hand because Vanguard is everywhere. For 4 of that, 4 of the Ripple trigger. He lets you filter if you boosted with him, but I don't know how often you're going to do that because you really need the cards in hand to guard in this aggressive meta. And I wouldn't know anything about that. No, Jose wouldn't know anything about that. 4 Battle Siren Mallika. She's your Markle clone. It helps you break over lines considering most of your deck is, you know, the power lines aren't huge most of the time, and, you know, hitting over that threshold if you're restanding helps a lot. And then for the best trigger, Battle Siren Carolina, go heals. And moving on to grade 1s. So first, for the most important card in the deck, Silent Ripple Sotirio, you get the grade 1, you're in business. He's an 8k on top of Alecs, and he searches for the grade 2 and the grade 3. Well, I say he's the most important, but really, you know, it's all about the boy. The only reason this deck is actually played at all is Odysseus. He's a 2 of now, only because that's exactly how many we can have of him. This isn't the super aggressive deck that you're used to. Now it's more of a utility, board filling, and murder you deck, since it can restand the entire board later on. But more on the actual combos later. Odysseus, once per turn, you can throw one of your rear guards, not him, into the soul, and pull a Ripple with of the same grade as your Vanguard, ride it, and then pull out a rear guard the same grade as your Vanguard. So this has some interesting plays in this deck, specifically with the grade 3 Legion, and grade 2, which I'll explain in a bit. Other than that, you probably want to start with this card and Sotirio in your opening hand. If you can, that really gets the deck rolling. So then we have standard 4 perfect guards. The old deck used the quintet walls, but with how fast this deck mills through now, I'm sticking with perfect guards, especially with Deeply still running around and being good, as it's also taking some tops. And you don't want to be caught out with a quintet wall or a special PG. Then we have 2 light signals, Penguin Soldier, the KFC clone. All around good considering you're doing nothing else with your soul in this deck, and it always helps draw an extra card, especially if with all the tech we're playing in here. Speaking of tech, I've got 1 of Stride Fodder. I guess you can play a 3rd Penguin Soldier or what have you, but the 1 of Stride Fodder is important because of later card choices, and also it helps when all your grade 3s are in the drop zone or in your soul or wherever you put them, considering how fast you're going through cards. So grade 2s, 4 Rising Ripple Pavroth. He's a grade 2, he's a 10k on top of Sotirio, and he can actually restand a rear guard. I mean, it's not bad. It's pretty good. You probably won't use it particularly often, but it's something for your opponent to watch out for, and probably want to guard you on grade 2 and lessen their hand size. Always, always helpful. And then the bread and butter of Aqua Force himself, Tidal Assault, getting you to those waves, getting you to where you need to be. And in any deck with a restand mechanic, Pavroth or any of the strides, or Genovious or Miltiadis. All of those great with Tidal Assault because you can swing into rear guard, boost up your attacks, and then swing multiple times. Always helpful. We're playing a one of Unruly Ripple Lapis. He is just 12k, but he's a Ripple, so you can, assuming you don't get the grade 2, you can use Odysseus to get to Pavroth and call him out. And also, he does work with the other cards that need Ripple. So if you're playing a 12k, this is the guy to go to. And his condition is really not that hard to get off, so why not? Then for the tech cards, we're playing 2 High Tide Sniper. Absolutely devastating card if you can find the time to stride. He's GB1, and if he's the 3rd battle of the turn or more, you may Soul Blast 1, and he gains 10k for that battle. So you can make a 26k column out of nowhere for very little cost. Like I said, we don't use Soul for a whole lot in this deck, and with how Odysseus works, Odysseus builds Soul, this uses the Soul. And once you get to Lambros or anything that can restand to rear guard, specifically the Legion effects, you really don't want multiple 26 lines. Just ask anybody who plays against Sank Guard. That's why that deck is good, and this is what makes this deck good. And actually, another tech choice. This is probably the deck with the least 4-ofs I have ever played in my Vanguard career. I'm playing 2 Battle Siren Adelaide. Very interesting card, highly overlooked from the Aqua Force booster unless you're playing Thavas. And so, just to make sure I get this right, what this card actually does is GB1, Counterblast 1, and Soul Blast 1. When this unit is placed on rearguard, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Thavas in its card name, you may pay the cost. And if you do, until end of turn, this unit gets power plus 2000 and auto rearguard once per turn. At the end of this battle that this unit attacked a Vanguard, you may stand this unit. But Ryan, you're not playing Thavas. Why on earth would you play this card? Well, I'll tell you why. Because this works with Storm Commander Thavas, the best first stride in Aqua Force. So, if you're on Storm Commander Thavas, which you should be first most of the time, you can just drop this down, and hey, you've got something to swing with. So now you've got 2 11k attacks in the front row, something in the back row, and hopefully another line, possibly a High Tide Sniper. That's pretty good. Not bad at all. With triggers, that could be even bigger. So definitely not something you want to look over. This card, is it good in this deck? I like to think so. It's a major combo piece. If you find it on the right turn, otherwise, it'll end up in the damage, you don't care. It'll be a 9k, it's something. Doesn't hurt. It does hurt a little bit to ride it, but with the 2-of in a 12 grade 2 deck, you're not going to see it very often. So, can it do a lot of good? Yes. Can it do a lot of bad? Maybe. But the fact that this deck is so techy, it can actually do a lot of silly things to your opponent that they won't understand. And now for the grade 3 lineup, we have 4 of the Legion. You will want to ride this guy over and over, just because, even before you Legion. On ride, he counterblasts 1, you check the top 3 cards of your deck, pick a Ripple from among them, put it in your hand, put the other 2, or however many cards it was, into the drop zone. And you can do this multiple times a turn with Odysseus. So you can play him, search for a Ripple, get it to your hand, use Odysseus, ride another one of him, do it again, and then Legion. And then you have more Soul for High Tide Sniper and Penguin Soldier. And his ability, other than the on-ride, is when this unit attacks a Vanguard, if this unit is in Legion, and you have 3 or more units that are rested in your front row, choose up to one of your rear guards, stand it, and countercharge 1. Then, if you have 3 or more units that are rested in your back row, you draw a card. So, pretty decent utility on top of that, but you're thinking this Legion skill is not very good until you realize that Genovious, the first guy from this deck, actually has a skill of his own. And if you never played against this deck in BT11 format, he is Limit Break 4, Counterblast 2, and Persona Blast. I haven't seen that in a while. From your hand and discard it. At the end of the battle, this unit attacked a Vanguard. If the number of Rusted Aqua Force units in your front row is 3, you may pay the cost. And if you do, stand all of your Aqua Force rear guards. So what you get to do is, on combo, you can Legion into Genovious, swing with both of your columns, your rear guard columns, swing with this, use Miltiadis' skill, stand one of your units, it doesn't really matter which one, although you don't want to stand your back row one yet, so you can draw a card. Then you can use Genovious' skill, Counterblast 2, ditch a copy, which you can search with Miltiadis, you dig for it really, and stand everything. And then you get your triggers, and then you can swing with your High Tide Snipers and Tidal Assaults again. Very powerful combo. It's what this deck is mostly running on now. And if it works and you get it right, absolutely devastating. Although it is recommended that you stride once or twice first before using this combo. But if in a pinch situation where all you can do is Legion, you know, this is pretty dang good just to get off. And then for my last grade 3, I'm running a One of Thavas. One of Thavas. This card is only in here 1 Adelaide. I can still make it work and get my swings in. But also, because I run the One of Stride Fodder, if I see the Stride Fodder, I can play it on the rear guard, ditch a Genovious because I do not want to ride this Genovious, search for the Thavas, and then I have a decent ride to go into Storm Commander Thavas or what have you until I can get back to Miltiadis. So basically, this is in case of an emergency ride, but it really doesn't do any harm in the deck at all. Otherwise, you're just going to use it for Stride Fodder, it's going to end up in the damage, and you're going to be pleasantly satisfied with the results should it actually work. But there are a lot of 1-ofs and 2-ofs in this deck. Really, you're going to see the Legion pretty often. You just don't want to ride in Genovious, and you want to get your combo off as quickly as possible. And now onto the Stride deck. Also, a lot of 2-ofs. There is no 4-of strides in here. Your best first stride and the expensive card of the deck, Storm Dominator Commander Thavas. So if you're not familiar with what he does, he can be your first stride, and once per turn, you Persona Flip, choose up to one of your rear guards, and until end of turn, it gets power plus 5,000, and this unit can attack from the back row. Making the best of a bad situation with Thavas always helps. He makes an enabler. He just makes an enabler for all your Aqua Force effects. Extremely helpful, especially when you want to put like a Tidal Assault in the backline, protect it, or what have you, or you just want more attacks. You know, why not? Or you can just give something 5k and just, just because, pretty much for free for a Persona Flip. And there's really nothing wrong at all with this card. You will very rarely use its GB3 skill. In fact, I almost wish they hadn't printed it just to save space so I didn't have to, waste so much of the good art. And then the rest of the choices are pretty much up to your personal choices, although I am playing 2 Surging Ripple Prodromos. On hit, he checks the top 5 cards, picks out 2 ripples, and puts them into your hand. And I just want to make sure that... Nope, you actually call them to rear and put the rest back. So unlike Miltiadis, he calls them both to separate rear guards, and you put the rest back in your deck and shuffle. So, not bad, can be a first stride. You really only want to use this when your opponent is either at very low damage with no cards in hand because they guarded so much, and you really want to get the skill off. He can be very strong, and he is a ripple, so he counts for names, even though you should have ridden him on a ripple anyway. But he's some utility if you need to call units, especially when people start retiring your Tidal Assaults and whatnot. You need some power, pressuring them out with Prodromos. Not a bad decision at all. I'm playing 1 Aristotle. On 3rd battle or more, you can counterblast 1 and retire something after it attacks a Vanguard. So if you really want to kill a problem unit, at least you have some retire in this deck somewhere in here. It's not great, but it's definitely not bad either. And in case you don't feel like using this, I also play the One of Blizza, just so in case I go through a lot of these, as most of them are Persona Flip, I can get a decently powerful line going and pressure my opponent out. If they don't have a PG, they're upset. If they do have a PG, then I've made them use it, and then I can go into the boy, the god of Aqua Force himself, Lambros, playing the 2-of, as they really shouldn't survive once I go into Lambros. I've either Legion comboed them or used Thavas and started hitting them with High Tide Sniper, and if you go into Lambros in this deck, they are most likely going to die. You've got your Tidal Assault, you've got your High Tide Sniper, and you can go off with insanely high power lines on the rear guard. So, what this deck actually wants to do, you can either Legion combo here and stand all your rear guards. You can use Lambros to do it. You can fill up your board or retire something or enable, but really it's all about just making sure that High Tide Sniper and Tidal Assault are on the board, and you've got multiple swings for massive amounts of power. And the ability for this deck to overwhelm your opponent, assuming they're not a faster deck than you, is really, really astounding, considering they tried to nerf this deck's aggressiveness, but really they've just revealed how powerful it was in the first place with just Miltiadis and the cards available to Aqua Force. So it's an alternative to Blue Wave. It is taking some tops, and if you have a list that is different, perhaps less techy, you feel more standard, feel free to share it with us. I'd love to take a look. But this is our take on it. This deck list came from a friend of ours in cooperation with some of my deck choice, some of my personal card choices. Like I said, this is the techiest deck I've ever played, and it doesn't do terribly at all. You know, this is a deck that if I wasn't such a Kagura lover, I would definitely take in the tournament with me. But that's my take on our Spicy Ripple brew. We call it Spicy Ripple Heat. Put that heat of fajita. You know, put it in the description if you like PokeMMD2 or Blender. And this has been Doomburger Griffin. Thanks for watching. Peace.